Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Jared Lee, and I'm joined, as usual, by my lovely wife, Jamie Lee. So, Jamie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Jared, how are you?
I'm doing good. My real question is, are you doing well? Because it's kind of been a little bit of it's been a rough week for Jamie here in terms of you woke up, was it Monday morning? And at first it was allergies, and then I think we've realized it's turned into like a quasi cold / allergies perhaps.
I think it started for me on the latter end of Sunday, and then I woke up Monday and I was like, what is happening? I thought it was allergies. It still might have started as allergies, but it became a cold basically.
Yeah. But you're already doing better, so that's good.
Absolutely. It's
and
not
then
last long.
Today our children tried to set a booby trap for her and she sprained her ankle. I was in the garage printing shirts and I heard I came in the house, had your foot up, and you had stepped on one of the children's toys, and
I did.
Had a thing happen.
I did. I was walking toward them because our son was hitting the table aggressively, and it was loud, and he was making marks on it. And I was like, Bubba, stop! And I was going over there to like take it away from him, and I wasn't looking where I was walking, and one of those little wooden round pieces that that little stick game where you match like the pattern of
I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, so it rolled. So when I stepped on it, like it moved, and I stepped weird on my foot on the outside of it. It was not technically my ankle. It's like below my ankle a little bit. I rolled it, heard some stuff happening. Not great. I thought it was okay at first, and then as the day's gone on, it's hurt worse. So,
well, I kind of figured that would happen. I've had a sprained ankle. I was like, you'll feel okay right now, and then later on it'll get tight. But I think this is a great time to talk about getting a hyperbaric chamber. I've been talking about this for years.
You know, I hear that the celebrities do that. They have hyperbaric chambers.
Well, they have them for a reason. They're kind of, they actually, this is the only thing I'll mention about. There was some study that they did. I forget, it was another country, and they did like some sort of hyperbaric chamber protocol, and they found like there's, you know how they say there's like a quote biological age that you are. So not like you could be like 30, but your biological age could be like 50, or it could be like you're 20.
Yeah.
So they found apparently in this study that by doing the hyperbaric chamber in this way or whatever, that it took like 20 years off of their biological life. Like they were 20 years younger.
Oh, dang.
Biologically. Now, I don't know how much is credence to that, but I was like, that's interesting. So
yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down. I know Jennifer Lopez does that a lot.
Well, if Jennifer Lopez does it, then why?
Did you say it, Lopez?
I said it because of South Park. That's that's how they called her.
But yeah, if they're not outrageously expensive, then okay. Maybe
they're outrageously expensive. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It's like a car anywhere from $5,000 to like $50,000. Something like that. But anyways.
Right. What does it do?
I don't really know the specifics. It's something about oxygen. I don't know. Anyways, that's neither here nor there.
All right.
Hopefully your ankle is better.
I hope so. We're supposed to go to Universal this weekend, but
yes, I
can't really walk.
If you can't walk, I could put a damper on things, but we'll have to play it by ear. So probably by tomorrow we'll know how you're doing. I'm giving her the protocol. We've got the heat going and everything like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We may or may not go to Orlando this weekend, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we'll play that one by ear. But,
okay.
But yeah. So. All right, well, we do have some news to talk about today, especially considering it is Disney's earnings call is today. It was today.
Yeah.
So I got to listen to most of that, not all of it. No, I did listen to all of it, I think.
Oh, you did?
I did. I was listening to it while the kids were yelling at one point. So
so you probably didn't know.
I don't know how much.
Happening.
I don't know how much I retained. I read some stuff afterwards, but anyways.
Right.
And got that, and then we have Samantha K on the show. She's we've known her for a very long time, but she is our resident DVC expert, and we're going to have her on to talk about DVC because we're not DVC experts. Like we rented DVC, and obviously, like we have the show, and we do a lot of things with Disney and theme parks, but we're never going to act like we're experts on something if we don't actually know about it.
Yeah.
And when we don't know about those things, we bring people on to fill in the gaps. So we have rented DVC many times. Jamie could probably write a whole book on how to rent them and get a good deal and all that. But in terms of owning it and like really what it is and how it operates, we figured let's bring Samantha on.
Absolutely.
Her entire platform is all about DVC. So
yes,
we have her to come on, which she's always fun.
Absolutely.
She's very sweet.
I love her.
So we will do that. But before we get to the news, I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can catch us at CTM Podcast. And if you are, we'd please ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Let us know that you're here.
Yeah.
We'd love that. And if you're listening to us on good old podcast format, audio-wise, which is fantastic, we'd ask please subscribe to that and leave us a review if you wouldn't mind. We'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want even more content, if you want to help contribute to the show, you should look at joining Club 32. And that's our private group, kind of like our own Patreon. We just host on our end where we have additional content. Like we have Cool Kids Kitchen live stream once a month where we make a Disney dish. We have the Club 32 Speakeasy live stream. We have the Club 32 show, which is a live stream every Tuesday where we sit down and just chat with everybody in Club 32. And last night we talked about names. And you may think that doesn't sound very funny. It was very interesting. And then we played the Pea and Keel skit about names. So it was
the Pea and Keel.
So what did I Pea and Keel?
You said Pea and Keel.
The Key and Peel skit that talks about that. So you may think that sounds boring, but it was a good time.
It was great.
And sometimes we talk about things you can do on your trips. It depends. But anyway, it's always a good time. We also have 20% off of CTM apparel and 1901 Candle Company products. There's a private podcast feed. There is a private Facebook group and Discord and much more. So again, if you're looking to join over there, you can go to ctmvip.com and we have monthly or yearly options. And you can even do a free trial if you want to do the monthly version there. And if you want to join there, we'd love to have you. So again, ctmvip.com is where you go to check that out.
Okay.
All right. The first news story we have is Disney's earnings call was today. And the results did show a decrease in Disney World attendance, but they did say that there was higher customer spending. And Jamie's going to talk about some of the reasons that they gave for this.
Yeah, so they basically indicated there were a couple of reasons for this. They said that lower volumes due to decreases in attendance and occupied room nights, both of which reflected the comparison to the 50th anniversary celebration in the prior year quarter. Higher costs due to inflation, partially offset by cost-saving initiatives and lower depreciation. And increased guest spending due to higher average ticket prices, partially offset by lower average daily room rates. So what I'm gathering from this is that, yes, they're spending more, but they're not spending as much in hotel rooms. Like they're not staying on property as much. Is that?
Yeah. And they didn't say it, their wording. So anytime earnings calls are, obviously if you listen to them, like they're going to obviously give the most like flowery talk they can. Even if a company was reporting that like, we're going out of business, they're going to say it in the nicest, like most, like you're like, wow, they're doing really well. They're like, well, they're going out of business. Not that Disney is. I'm just saying in general, that's how earnings calls kind of go.
Right.
So the way they worded it, I need to look into it further. Like I said, I listened to it, but I didn't really get a chance to like digest all of this. But then when they were saying the attendance was down, but higher customer spending, did they say that it was higher spending overall or just like per guest?
I think they mean like per guest.
That's
like
what I was thinking too. Like I
Uh-huh.
don't think spending by guest overall was up. I think they were saying per guest that was coming was up, but they weren't super clear on that part.
Well, they did say that the what they brought in, like most of the revenues, the income that they brought in was from Disney Cruise Line and international parks. So those two entities are doing like well compared to the last year quarter.
Yeah.
Or 2023 quarter one. So not that it's not like a big dramatic difference in attendance numbers or revenues, but like it just shows that I think the 50th anniversary stuff has worn off. There's no more quote unquote revenge travel going on. It's kind of not hit a lull. I don't want to say a lull, but just it's almost like evening out, I guess is a good way to put it, at least in Disney World and Disneyland. So,
yeah, I mean, I do think it's, again, a lot of this stuff is just, it's unknown. I mean, if you look at, people want to talk about the war between Universal and Disney, which I hate that terminology, but Universal reported as well, like their attendance was also down in the Orlando area. I believe they said in Hollywood it was still up a bit because of Super Nintendo World. So, to be fair in reporting that, like it seems like probably most of Orlando is down overall. But it'll be interesting in the coming years how that shakes out with obviously Epic Universe opening up and things. But yeah, to be fair, like it just seems like all of it in Orlando and maybe in the U.S. for that part is kind of down. So
yeah,
just to give some perspective there. So they had some things that they kind of announced. I think one of the things that it doesn't relate to the theme parks, but one of the things that is interesting is they announced a partnership. Or actually, I think Disney technically owns a minority stake in Epic Games now, and there's going to be a Fortnite. So it's like Fortnite has different game modes. There's a Fortnite, and I guess inside of it is going to be some sort of Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and I think Pandora like part of it.
Okay.
Not really sure how it's going to play out. I know what you're thinking. I'm a grown man who plays Fortnite sometimes. I do. Okay. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes me and my friends play it. But inside of it, so I know about Fortnite, and probably so does your 10-year-old child, whoever's listening to this. Mm-hmm. But there are different game modes. So I'm assuming it's going to be something like that. But they didn't really give any specifics. But it was like it was like $1.2 or $2 billion that Disney spent to get a minority stake. So
I think it's 1.5.
It's something like that. It was not a cheap amount. And Epic Games is huge. So that was, and Disney's been trying to kind of get into the video game space for a time. Mm-hmm. So I think, and if you look at Bob Iger's record, this kind of fits into it. Instead of starting something from scratch, just kind of buy your way in. Fortnite's not a bad one to do it. They just had a recent stuff with like Lego and some other aspects to it. So it's interesting. We'll see. They didn't give a timetable. It said soonish about when it would start. Mm-hmm. But we will see how that goes and everything like that. But that was an interesting one. Another one that was big was that Moana 2 was announced that it will be coming to theaters in November.
It was supposed to be a Disney Plus release, and they said, we're not going to do that. We're going to put this in theaters, guys.
Which I don't know. This was a rumor I heard, and we didn't. Again, we've kind of. I know it's sometimes we'd gotten talking about some of this stuff, and that's going to be on a separate show of like the entertainment side of things. But this was a rumor that was out there for a bit. Mm-hmm. Never really talked about it because I didn't really know. I was like, well, maybe, but I don't know if that's good or bad in that aspect. I think what they're figuring out, if I'm being honest, they have a better chance of making their money back by putting it out into the theaters. And not to mention,
well, it makes sense.
Well, and not to mention that with the writer's strike, there's not a lot of stuff, coming out because of that. So,
oh, that's true. They did shift all the schedule, at least a few weeks back, because of that.
Yeah.
So, and they did release a new schedule with that.
I actually think this is a trend you'll start seeing more with Disney and other streaming companies. They also announced something about it. They're putting a sports bundle with other networks into it.
Right. Yeah.
I had kind of talked about, I think that we'll start seeing this outside of just sports. I think they're realizing the streaming stuff isn't as lucrative as they thought it was going to be, and probably a lot more stuff will be going into theaters. Because at least that way you can directly, make money back potentially. And then it will still go on Disney Plus at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, but that was announced. That's in November. They also said Zootopia 2 will come out in 2025, and the Toy Story and Frozen sequels will be released in 2026.
Yes.
So that was the updated schedule.
Yeah. I mean, nothing groundbreaking. The only thing that was just a little bit of surprise was the Moana announcement.
Well, because they talked about doing a live action the last time we heard anything about Moana.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's still on.
Is that still happening?
I don't know.
They didn't mention anything about it. But yeah, I think this is a good move for them. So, but yeah, that's
I was surprised it's coming out this year, which means they were working on this, which is an interesting idea. I wonder if I've also had this theory about the way Disney Plus does stuff is like a lot of this stuff was made for movies that they just broke up into episodes. So it may be something that's very easy for them to just put back into a movie because of the way they kind of tend to do the shows. But
remember all of the information, like all the streaming information that we get about Disney Plus, the first movie Moana is always at the top, like most viewed.
Yeah, it's a popular
and so
movie.
They're like, okay, well, why don't we just take that and put it in the theaters?
I mean, personally, I think I know sometimes I have criticisms of things when I feel that it's valid, and I'm always honest, but I think this is a smart thing.
Absolutely.
I think it's a better idea than I think they maybe have found out that just sticking all this stuff on Disney Plus is not working like they thought it was. So, yeah. So we'll see if they do this for more stuff. But so that was other than that, earnings calls are dull. They're not fun to listen to.
They are.
They're kind of get in, get out. There was no real interesting questions that I recall. I kind of thought sometimes at the end, some of the investors asked some interesting questions. I don't think there's any mention of Epic Universe, which I thought maybe there would be. Nobody asked that question. So I still, I'm sure this stuff was in the works for a while. before this, but everyone wondered, is Disney going to have an answer to, obviously Epic Universe had their big announcement last week, but at least on the theme park side, not as of yet, which I wasn't expecting them to. If they're going to announce anything, they always do it like D23s.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
All right. Well, outside of the earnings report, there is now a Disney Visa card holders can get special rates on hotel rooms this spring.
Yes. So it varies based on room type, room hotel, or resort hotel and travel dates. But here's an example of what you could get if you're a Disney Visa card holder. You can get All-Star Movies Resort and All-Star Music Resort for $129 per night plus tax for a standard room for stays between March 25th through April 27th. Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort for $229 plus tax for standard room, March 25th through June 29th. And you can get Boardwalk Inn for $419 per night plus tax for a resort view room for stays most nights between March 25th and June 29th. And you can also get great rates March 25th through June 29th at the Cabins at Fort Wilderness, All-Star Movies, Music, Sports, Animal Kingdom Lodge, Animal Kingdom Village, Kidani, Art of Animation, Cars Family Suites, Contemporary, Coronado Springs, Grand Floridian, Old Key West, Pop Century, Port Orleans, French Quarter, Port Orleans, Riverside, and Saratoga Springs. Obviously, this is limited, so it's not gonna apply to every single night, but you have to use your Disney Visa card to pay the deposit, at least, is what I'm understanding, for it to be activated.
Okay, there you go.
So if you're a Disney Visa card holder, then get you some good rates.
Yeah, they do this for Disney Plus stuff too sometimes.
Oh yeah,
so they try and incentivize that as much as they can.
Absolutely. So there you go.
All right. Next news story we have is that the Build Your Own Lightsaber experience, not the one in Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
That's a different one.
Right.
The original one that was over in the Tatooine Traders is back in its original form.
Yes. So before COVID, it was like what it is now, but before this, a couple days ago, even whatever it was, they had the cast members. They would hand you the parts to do it. You weren't able to just go in and build it yourself. So they've moved the gates, or not the gates, the ropes that blocked everything off, so you can go in and get it. But you can build your own lightsaber for starting at $29.99, and it's a great alternative to the Savvy's Workshop Build Lightsaber experience because it's much cheaper, but it is pure plastic.
Yeah, they're not movie replica quality or anything like that, but yeah, if you got,
I think our son would love it.
He would. I don't know if I want to give him a giant lightsaber to go around, but maybe, I don't know. He would like building it either way.
That's what I'm saying. I think this would be good for him. The Savvy's is still not. I don't think he's ready for that, but he might be ready for this. So, yeah,
possibly. And this is when you get off of Star Tours, it's in the gift shop there.
Yeah,
that's what this is. So you can actually just walk in there as well. You don't have to go ride Star Tours, but while you're there, go ride Star Tours.
It's usually like a walk on.
Yeah,
it's
And looking back, I never thought I would say this. It's the second best Star Wars ride in the park, I think.
Oh.
I think Rise of the Resistance is one. And I think Star Tours. And then I would put Millennium Falcon.
Shut the front door, really?
I've talked about this before. I think the Millennium Falcon, obviously the Millennium Falcon is cool.
Yeah.
But outside of walking through it, the way in which the ride is executed, I'm not a big fan of. Unless you're the pilot, everything else is lame.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
I think I would rather have a full simulator of it and experience it that way versus how it kind of is. I get it. It sounds cool. And if you are the pilot, it's kind of fun. But yeah, for 4 out of the 6 people in there, I don't think it's as much fun.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
Not that you shouldn't do it. Just, in my opinion. Anyways,
okay.
Send all your hate mail to Eduardo.
There's that Eduardo name again.
Listen, I've talked about this before. Eduardo is our producer, and anything goes wrong, it's his fault. Okay. He's often fired, but he's always rehired. He's he comes back. Gosh. He's loyal. Okay, he understands.
What are you even saying?
No, it's fine. He sits over there. You're good. Doing a good job, Eduardo. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right, and the last story we have is the Disney Fairy Tale Weddings has added a new wedding venue and is the World Celebration Garden in Epcot.
Yeah, it's pretty. So you've got Spaceship Earth in the background. There's just a beautiful, placed it for you so you could see how it looked like. But oh my gosh, would this be appealing to you?
There's a joke in there somewhere that I'm not gonna. This is a family show.
Oh,
about the certain thing in front of the ball there. If you've seen it,
no, yeah. Let's not go into that.
Let's just say
no. Let's not.
I'm not going to get into it. Let's just
Okay.
say in front from, and not saying it's not a pretty area, but there's a certain array of flowers that are presented in a certain way that may or may not resemble
certain things
off certain ladies. Just saying. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But
okay. Well, I'm not talking about.
Yes,
that
I know.
Specifically,
that's what stuck out to me because the picture was like right in the middle, but it looks pretty. Yeah, I mean, the whole area looks really cool.
It's literally right. It's in the gardens area. And this is what Disney says about the venue. If you want to paint a beautiful picture, it says this venue provides a dramatic and magnificent backdrop for a private after-hours wedding ceremony and reception. Surrounded by lush trees and greenery, and of course the iconic spaceship Earth, this fully immersive outdoor wedding venue is transformed at night by the shimmering lights on the 18-story geosphere. I never called it a geosphere before. The enhancement of a unique lighting display on the Epcot icon, choreographed to music and changing color patterns, creates an epic wedding experience for the happy couple and their guests. Oh, man. You can start booking this for weddings January 2025 and beyond.
I mean, technically, I guess Walt.
Only $5 million.
The Walt statue is watching you.
It is. It's in the background right there. That would be cool. Have like Walt Disney in the background.
I mean, I guess he would be there the whole time.
But if if Spaceship Earth is like glowing and different colors, like choreographed to your wedding or your ceremony, dang. But of course, it has to be at night. So you might have a wedding at 1 a.m.
I mean, true.
But it's okay.
True.
So we're going to renew our vows.
Oh, we are.
January 2025. You heard it here first.
Okay.
That would be nice. That would be really nice.
Are you like speaking it out there?
I'm just putting it into the universe.
Okay. Well,
don't you want to marry me again?
I love you very much.
Oh, that is not what I asked you.
Wait, you want to have listen, we've talked about before, and this is anybody out there looking to get married. Listen, marriage is wonderful, but in my opinion, I would elope.
Right. So we're already married.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Why would we pay for
another?
another wedding when we already didn't want to? We already talked about how we would just elope if we had to do it all over again.
All you have to say is yes, I would marry you over again. That's all you have to say.
No, I would of course marry you all over again.
That's what I asked you,
Okay,
man.
I thought you meant in terms of like being at like Epcot like that. Of course, I would marry you all the time, every day. I'm just saying.
This is so genuine that I forced you to say it.
No, I'm not being forced here. I would obviously.
All right. It's a pipe dream. It's fine. It's fine.
Here comes the guilt trip.
No, it's fine. No, it would be beautiful to have a wedding here, but I don't know what the price tag is for this.
I am curious.
In line with the other
I am
ones.
curious as what the price tag for this is.
Yeah, if anybody wants to tell me.
What is the typical price of a
me.
Disney wedding?
I mean, if you're going very, very basic, like you, the officiant, the groom, and like the witnesses, I think it starts at $5,000.
At $5,000?
Yeah, like that's like the most basic thing you can get.
That's not
Like
as
no
bad.
frills, nothing else.
That's not as bad as I thought it would be.
But like if you want to go to the cast, if you want to do like in Magic Kingdom, I mean, I forgot. I had a Trip Tales about this. I think she's like it was like upwards 100 grand or more.
100.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah, like stop.
that would be me hearing that number and walking right out.
Like
You could buy a house in some places
You
for that.
absolutely could. You absolutely could. So
Wow.
yeah.
So what's the 5,000 get you? Like backstage in like Hollywood studios or something?
No, like it literally is just what I just said. Like
But it's
a
just
ceremony with like the officiant, like I think you get like a photographer.
But you get like in it Magic Kingdom?
No, that's not Magic Kingdom.
That's what I was saying. Like where does it take
That's
place,
like
though?
that's like the beach at Polynesian.
I mean, okay. Okay.
But again, it's like a few minutes.
I'm
and
shocked.
Like you have like there's it's very
Right.
it's
I
very
mean, I'm
short.
shocked it's even that cheap, but especially if
Yeah.
it's going to be a couple minutes. I mean, that's still expensive. But
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that includes reception. Like again, it's been a long time since I was thinking
They're
about.
like, here's the money, and you're married. Get out of here.
You wanted a Disney wedding? Here it is.
I mean, you could do a shotgun, just do it. I guess you could just, stand on the beach and have your minister with you and just get married real quick. I guess.
they frown upon that. I think
But,
they do.
I mean, they may frown. Do they?
Because it is private property, so
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging.
I
it.
would not do it. I would not encourage someone to do it on the on the down low.
Nor would I encourage public engagements. Don't do that.
I'm sure if they saw someone in a suit and someone in a white dress walking around and Disney's
Well,
like,
you wouldn't.
oh, is there a wedding here? No, not
Right.
that
Well, I'm
I
not
know
saying
of.
you would do that. It would be a little low key, maybe, but yeah. Didn't they used to do that over at Universal on the bridge? Didn't people used to get like married
They
there?
used to do that. You can't do that anymore.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember seeing like people that had
No.
gotten married there, but
No, they cracked down on that.
I mean,
Yeah.
Main Street would be full of people getting married if they allowed it. I'm sure.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Engagements happen. Weddings can happen. Anyway, we're going.
That's been wedding talk.
So much stuff about
Wedding talk
weddings.
with Jamie and Jared. Turning
That's
next
right.
week where we talk about
Divorce.
how to negotiate. What?
I was
Divorce.
like the next step. I went dark. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Good Lord.
I
I
went dark.
said I would marry you.
You hesitate.
I did not. I thought you were talking about Disney like that, not actually marrying you. Listen, in my defense and in yours, half the time on this show, when I'm saying something, you don't really hear what I'm saying, and
That is not true.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
That's just being married as well. Listen, I would marry you. I love you more than
Me
life
too.
itself.
Same
But if you're
cities.
asking me about at Disney, I'm gonna hesitate and be like, well, okay, let's.
Fair enough.
What I was gonna say is
Let's.
next week we'll talk about negotiating for the DJ.
Oh, okay. That's our new podcast. How to do your
Jamie
wedding
got-
on the cheap.
Jamie got really annoyed with me because I negotiated everything for our wedding.
I didn't like that.
I got it way cheaper though.
That's
so,
true.
anyways, all right. Well, that is it for the news and
gosh.
wedding talk. If you'd like any tips, just reach out to Eduardo and he'll get it to us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we get to talking to Samantha, we do have a poll time.
Poll time. All right, this week's poll time actually ties into our discussion today with Samantha. And I asked, are you a Disney Vacation Club member? If not, would you ever consider becoming one? And 63% said, no, I am not a DVC member. 16% said, not yet, but I am considering it. And 21% said, yes, I am. So about 79% said they are not, basically.
Yeah.
Because the ones that are considering it is only 16% of those, of that 79. I actually thought this number would be higher. Like they would be more people that would be considering it or already be members.
Yeah.
But there's some good comments about like why people are members, why they're not members, people that have thought about it or not. It's just most of the time it comes down to price. Like if they want to spend the money, if they want to spend all their vacations at Disney, if they want to put the investment in. But there's a lot of people that are happy with it. And so I'm sure we'll hear more from Samantha about like pros and cons of Disney Vacation Club. But I was interested to see what our listeners, thought about Disney Vacation Club. And so it's pretty evident that, it's pretty skewed to not being a DVC member at this point, at least for the poll we did.
Yeah, I would. I'll ask Samantha or make a note to ask her. But I would assume most people's hang up is the whole, at least for us, it's been that, or like the annual dues. I would imagine, just given, we've talked about it before, but the annual dues is always something I'm like, I don't know about that. So I imagine that may be something a lot of people have a hang up about, but, I don't know. So that's why we're having Samantha on, because I don't really know on DVC.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of people who have DVC, but I can't say I know a ton about it. So
Okay.
that's why we're having her on.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Thank you everybody for participating in the poll this week. I will have a new poll next week.
Yes, and if you want to be a part of the next poll time, you can do that in two ways. You can go over to Instagram over at Cap the Magic, and first off, follow us over there.
Yeah.
We're growing over there, and it's a lot of fun. And Jimmy posts the polls and the stories over there, and also in the Facebook group, the Capture the Magic community, Jamie posts the poll in there as well. So you can go with one or the other or both if you'd like. So there we go. All right, well, let's get to our segment today where we're going to talk about DVC. Now, obviously, if you've listened to the show, and if you haven't, well, hello. We are not DVC members ourselves. We've rented points. We're somewhat familiar with DVC, but we never act like we're experts.
We're not experts.
Yeah,
No
so
way.
we're not going to sit here and, read off of a script and act like we know what we're talking about on this. So we figured what's a better way is just to bring somebody on that is an expert on this stuff. So that's what we did.
And I actually, if I have questions about it, I ask this person.
Yes. And she's a friend of the show. First time on the show, though, is that we're having Samantha K on, and she goes by, it's at DVCMillenial on Instagram, and I don't know if Twitter, she'll let us know. But Samantha, welcome to the show, and you're our resident DVC expert. So, congratulations.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. Well, like we said, we're not DVC experts. You are, and your actual entire, all the content you put out revolves around DVC. So, and you are the one that we ask when we have questions. So it does make sense here. So before we get going on this, what's your background in, how'd you get into DVC and all that stuff?
So I became a DVC member February 2018. I got my points the day after Valentine's Day, and I own at Old Key West. And I got into DVC because my family's been going to Disney pretty much every year since 1994. But my parents did not own Disney Vacation Club. For me, it was after I took my first big girl trip where I planned it by myself and paid for it myself that I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this every year, but I don't have a couple $1,000s to just shell out every year to go to Disney. So how can I make this a little bit more affordable for myself while ensuring I can keep coming back? So DVC just fit into that.
Yeah. Well, Jamie's parents owned a DVC for a bit.
They did.
And then
they did.
They sold. They don't have it anymore. It was at Boardwalk, and I'm still bitter that they got rid of it. But it's okay.
Boardwalk is such a great resort.
It's so great. It's so great. So, yeah. Well, what is Disney Vacation Club, first of all? Because we keep saying DVC. It's Disney Vacation Club. So, what if you were to describe it to somebody that has no idea, never been to Disney, doesn't really, not familiar with anything like that? What would you tell them?
So I will give you the official Disney answer of it is a flexible timeshare program owned by Disney Vacation Development. So it's not you're going to the same resort at the same week every single year. You can pick and choose what resorts you stay at based on availability. And you have a certain number of points every year to book with. So it's not like every single time I go to Disney, I'm at Old Key West for a week in September. I can travel throughout the year, and I typically do. Or I could choose not to come at all this year and go next year.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, no. Now, okay, so DVC, we're just going to refer to it from now on.
Okay.
Because it's a long way to say it.
It is.
So there are resorts. So I guess that way to put it, people think of the Disney resorts, but DVC has their own basically subset of resorts inside of the resorts, kind of speaking.
Yeah, so it's either a standalone resort like Saratoga Springs, Old Key West, and Riviera. Those are the dedicated DVC resorts. Or there can be DVC villas within an existing resort like Grand Floridian, Polynesian, Wilderness Lodge. They all have DVC components that share space with the regular hotel guests.
And let me ask you a question. Did they, with all of the resorts that have just the cash rooms and the villas, did they retroactively go back and change some of the cash rooms? Did they all start just regular cash rooms and then go into some of the villas, like at Polynesian, for example? Because I know they made some of those DVC after the fact.
Yeah, so the model beforehand was just to build a standalone resort. So Old Key West was the first Disney Vacation Club resort. So they always intended that just to be used by DVC members. They have to keep some cash rooms in inventory just by law. Mm-hmm. But then once the other deluxe resorts kind of took off, it was okay, well, maybe we can fit some of these rooms to fit DVC. So like Polynesian, they took over 3 buildings and now we're getting a tower. And then Wilderness Lodge, originally it was a separate building that all the DVC villas were in, which is Boulder Ridge. And then they went back in and added Copper Creek into the existing Wilderness Lodge building. So
Okay.
Yeah, I know sometimes people get confused because when we've rented points, like my brother, we're Wilderness Lodge, and we had rented points, so we were in the DVC side. He was in the, regular hotel side, and technically ours was, I think was it Copper Creek? Because there's 2 inside of Wilderness Lodge.
We were Boulder Ridge.
Boulder
for
Ridge.
This one.
Boulder Ridge and Copper Creek. And I said, we're Boulder Ridge. And he's like, where's that? And I was like, well, it just say Wilderness Lodge. So it's really confusing if you're not familiar with it, but that's kind of why I asked that. Okay, so the way DVC works, you don't have like it's not going to be like $200 a night. You have a point system. How would you explain that and how that operates?
So the easiest way to think about it is like our points are our cash that we use to book rooms. So just kind of like cash prices for hotel rooms can fluctuate throughout the year, points are the exact same. So we have a couple different travel seasons where September is going to be the lowest because people typically do not travel in September because kids are going back to school and Florida has hurricane season. And it's just a very low point season for that reason. Like they want people to book rooms during that time. And then your high point times are like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. So when people are typically, taking their family vacations and kids are out of school. So it works almost exactly like the cash side of things. Like if the rooms are expensive on the cash side, they're probably expensive on the point side.
That would be weird if Polynesian was really cheap on the DVC side. So yeah, that makes sense.
So like, what's the average number of points that most people have? I don't know if that, and that's a very general question, but like what's a good amount of points for someone that say what they want to, go to Disney for like a week? Let's say like, is it 150? Is that about it?
Yeah, typically I tend to see people between like 150 and 200. Most DVC members do not travel as much as I do. So a lot of folks are doing like 2 weeks in a year or, 1 week in a larger villa. So most people are comfortable with 150 to 200, just depending on where they're booking and how big the room is.
Okay. And so DVC, obviously you have contracts. How do they work, and like do they expire, like all that stuff, for people that are maybe curious about it?
Yeah, so a contract for DVC has 4 parts. So you have your home resort. That is where your contract lives. That's where your points come from. So mine is Old Key West. You have your use year, which is when your travel year starts. So February is mine. So all of my points start February 1st. Then you have how many points you purchase. So every year I have the same number of points to use to book my rooms. And then the expiration date, because unfortunately DVC does not last forever. So each resort has an expiration date, and it's typically based off of when they started building the resort. So most of them are like 50-year contracts. There are some that are a little shorter, just because in the beginning, I don't think DVC really thought people would want it 50 years from then. So no matter when like your use year is, all of our contracts will expire on January 31st of whatever year they give you. So most of the older resorts like Old Key West, Boardwalk, Beach Club, those will expire in 2042. And then the newer resorts like Riviera, I believe that expiration is 2070. And then the cabins are 2075. So if you buy a newer resort, you get to enjoy it for longer. Okay.
Well, and I know sometimes they do like an extension, right? Was it Old Key West that had an extension? I don't know. Again, I'm not sure about any of this, but I feel like there was an extended contract thing that came out. Am I wrong?
Yeah, so it was probably about 10 years ago. Disney Vacation Club went to all the owners of Old Key West and said, for X number of dollars per point, we'll let you extend your contract for 15 years. Okay. And only about a third of them took that deal, because by that point, a lot of like old Key West members were getting a little bit older. Maybe they weren't traveling to Disney as much. So for a lot of people, extending another 15 years just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So sometimes on the resale market, you'll see contracts that will say expires in 2042. So that's someone who chose not to take the extension. Some members who did, you'll see it say like extended to 2057.
Okay.
But if you buy Old Key West directly from Disney, you automatically get the 2057 date.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's the part that's always been weird to me about I know they have the expiring contracts and things like that.
Well, speaking of buying direct,
Is this an ad now?
that was a segue into my next
I know.
question.
You did it like you were being secretive.
I was being
confused.
secretive about it.
So we're talking about buying direct and resale. So what is the difference between, now obviously buying direct would be buying directly, like a contract directly from DVC, but there's also the resale market. I guess you want to talk about the differences and like, I guess the pros and cons maybe of each one.
Yeah, so the biggest obvious difference between the two is how much you're going to pay. So if you buy directly from Disney, you are buying at kind of a premium price. If you buy resale, you can save probably up to 50% off of what you would pay going through Disney. But there are some trade-offs with that. So resale members who purchased after April 4th of 2016, you're not eligible for any like membership extras or extra benefits. So you can't access the lounges like Top of the World Lounge, the Epcot Lounge, or the Starview Lounge, which is in Disneyland. You're not eligible for the Sorcerer Pass, which is the discounted annual pass that we can buy. You're not eligible for shopping and dining discounts, and you can't go to the Moonlight Magic events that are like DVC exclusive after hours events. So by going through Disney, like, yes, you're paying a higher price, but you're getting access to those perks. So, and the other big difference too is the amount of time it takes. So going through Disney, like I could call up my guide tonight and say, I want to buy 150 points at Fort Wilderness, and I'll have it probably tomorrow morning. Like it's a very quick process because they're selling you their own inventory. If you're going through resale, the process, I've heard taking up to like 90 days for some people, because there's just kind of so many steps you have to go through buying it third party. And Disney does get 30 days to decide whether or not they'll buy back that contract. So then as the buyer, if Disney chooses to buy that contract back, you're starting all over again. So it's just a longer process, but it saves money. So you kind of have to like weigh if it's worth it.
Yeah, because I've heard of people saying, I mean, technically, you know, it's your contract, but if you're trying to like sell it for way, way less than it's worth, Disney could step in and say, no, like we're going to buy that back and stuff like that. So I guess that prevents it from being like, you know, insanely cheap on that end of things. So yeah, I think what's called first right of refusal, I think is what they have, or something along those lines. But yeah, they have the ability to do that. But
and then I know like the difference between the direct and resale is you have different cards, like different card colors, right?
Yeah, so we used to actually get physical like DVC cards. I still have mine, even though it expired like 3 years ago. So now everything is digital, so we don't get a card anymore.
Okay.
Now it's just on your My Disney Experience. It says DVCY means that you qualify for benefits. And I believe if you don't have that, it says like DVCN. So like, no, you don't get them.
They made it really simple.
That's very simple.
But it used to be even simpler. So the cards, if you were a member that was eligible for membership extras, you had a blue card. And if you weren't, you got a white card. So it was really easy for cast members to tell like who got a discount and who didn't. So
I mean,
now, is this is all the reason why too? Because of that, some people will do like a mix. So they'll buy resale, but to get the benefits, there's a minimum amount of points that Disney requires you to have to be able to get the benefits, and some people will buy enough points directly from Disney, but yet still get resale contracts and still have that savings there.
Yeah, I know a lot of members, including myself, who are kind of hybrids. So they'll do exactly what you said. They'll buy the minimum through Disney that they need to get the perks, and then anything extra they need, they'll buy through resale. So that's what I typically recommend people who are looking into DVC, if the perks are really important to you, buy the absolute minimum through Disney, and then anything else that you need, buy through resale and save yourself a couple thousand, because if you need 300 points, you're going to come out ahead getting 150 direct and resale as opposed to all 300 with Disney.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and speaking of perks, what are all of the DVC member perks?
I know you mentioned some of them, but was there anything else that that is included in that?
So the big ones that people kind of are on the fence of if they're going to buy direct or resale are the access to the lounges, because they are really cool spaces, and it's kind of nice to have like an exclusive, like members only space, especially in Epcot when it's 100 degrees during a festival and you just want somewhere to sit and cool off. That lounge is pretty great. And then some people, they're kind of on the fence because of the AP discount. So I can buy the Sorcerer Pass, which right now is priced at like $900, as opposed to what I would have to buy normally, which is the out-of-state pass, which is like $1,500 right now. So there's a bit of savings there.
Yeah.
So the other perks include like shopping discounts, like we can get up to 20% on certain items, dining discounts. That's usually like 10 to 15%, and it does not include a discount on alcohol. Members only events like Moonlight Magic, which is a free after hours event, or sometimes they'll do kind of little pop-up things throughout the year. Like this year they're doing a Valentine's thing at Boardwalk. They've done a Halloween event before. Sometimes they'll do things out on the West Coast at like California Adventure or Disneyland. So it's just kind of little fun perks that can just kind of pop up out of nowhere.
Gotcha.
Nice. Sounds good. They kind of sound similar. I mean, I think there's more in DVC, but it sounds very similar to like what APs get as far as like discounts and like a little bit of extras here and there. We don't have our own lounge, but
yeah, Disney. Well, Universal does, but not Disney. I was thinking Disney did, but yeah, they don't.
No, they don't. I would like one.
It would be nice,
Anyway,
just a pop-up tent, even.
Okay, so I'm curious your opinion of this. What do you think is the best resort to buy at? Like if you're going for either a direct or resale contract, which do you think is the best to buy at right now?
So if you're buying either way, honestly, if you're buying direct or resale, I think either Copper Creek or Saratoga are really great buys. Both of them still have a pretty long time left on their contracts. Copper Creek, you get 44 more years on it. And then Saratoga expires in 2054. So you're still getting like 30 years worth of points. Both of them have pretty low dues. So you're not going to be paying a ton each year in annual dues. And Copper Creek is a really difficult resort to get into, especially around Christmas, because Wilderness Lodge is all decorated and like a lot of people want that resort around the holidays. And then Saratoga Springs is so large that if you're not someone who plans 11 months in advance, like typical DVC members do, if you're kind of more last minute planner, it's pretty easy to get into Saratoga most times of the year. So that's great for someone who's not like a type A planner like myself. So yeah, those are two really great buys if anybody's looking into buying DVC. You don't always have to buy like the brand new Riviera. You can pick any resort you want, even if you're buying direct. But those would be kind of my top two if I was buying today.
So what's your bottom one? Which is one that you probably would never buy a contract at?
Oh, wait, can I guess that would be Riviera? Because I've heard that before.
It's actually not.
Oh, okay, I've heard a lot of people say that about Riviera.
I really like Riviera.
I love Riviera. I just heard that the contract side isn't the best sometimes.
Yeah, it was definitely a scary rule that they implemented with Riviera resale. For me, I see a lot of people kind of fall into the trap of, well, I can get Vero Beach or Hilton Head really cheap on resale, so I'm going to buy that and then use it to book at Disney World at 7 months. So I discourage people from doing that. So for me, those are the two resorts that I think are the worst buy, because yes, they're really cheap on the resale market. Like I think I saw a contract today for Vero Beach going for like $75 a point. Like you can get them really cheap. but they're both in hurricane prone areas. So their dues are extremely high because they have to cover insurance and storm damage and kind of things that you might not necessarily think about if you're not from areas that get hit by hurricanes. So you don't really come out ahead cost wise because whatever savings you're making on the contract end, you're paying for down the road with annual dues.
Speaking of,
I was going to say,
speaking of
so
dues.
talk about the dues, because that is one thing that like I know a lot of people have questions about is, so what are they? I mean, I understand what they are, but like how would you describe them? And they do vary. Like we have seen, obviously you were talking about the places there, and then the cabins, the Fort Wilderness cabins, those are higher than some of the other ones as well. So it does vary, but like what are they, and why would they vary necessarily for like the cabins versus like just the regular hotel?
So our annual dues are our maintenance fees. So if anybody lives where there's like an HOA, it's similar to that. So they cover things like resort maintenance, if your resort is undergoing refurbishment, transportation, administrative costs. They're just like basically the operating expense of whatever resort you own at, you are responsible to help pay for. So they do change every year. They typically increase from like 3 to 8% every year. It just kind of depends. The older resorts you'll see have a little bit higher dues just because they are older buildings, so they require a little bit more maintenance. And the beach resorts are prone to storms, so they also have higher annual dues just because, you know, they're constantly repairing or insurance is going up, things like that. So I think what's happening with the cabins at Fort Wilderness and maybe why their dues are so high is because they are standalone structures. Like they're not rooms in like a hotel building. So maybe DVC is thinking they're going to be a little bit more prone to, if we have a hurricane and like a tree falls over, like that could cause a lot more damage. Housekeeping is going to be a big expense there because they're standalone units that allow pets. So you're going to be cleaning up after pets. And pets, even the most well-behaved ones, if you leave them in the room, they might cause a little bit of damage. So they have to fix that. And then Fort Wilderness has kind of a similar problem as Old Key West and Saratoga, where it relies entirely on bus transportation, which is really expensive because you have to have buses running through the resort constantly. So like Old Key West, I think our highest expense is transportation because it's a big resort and it only uses buses. So I think that's why theirs are so high.
Funny enough, I do know about Old Key West is that resort was not meant to have buses when they built it, because you can see when you
can tell.
Oh yeah, it's those. I've seen some bus drivers in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, like the way they do that. It's I would not want to be
tight turns.
I would not want to be a bus driver in Old Key West. But yeah, that if you've ever been there, you can tell really quickly that buses do go through there, but it is not. They weren't designed for it. I'll put it that way. So
definitely not.
Now, is there a cap on? So you're talking about the dues increase. So this would be if people are looking at doing this. You obviously have your cost of your contract, but the dues are something you don't have a lot of control over. Is there a cap on how much they can increase that per year, or is that just completely out of your control?
It's kind of completely up to DVC. If property taxes go up in Florida, that affects dues. If your resort is one of the hurricane prone ones that got some damage, your dues might go up a little more than you thought the next year. I know Old Key West, I started out pretty low with dues. I think I started at like $7.50 a point. I now pay almost $10 per point because over the years, Old Key West has gotten a full refurbishment and it has a lot of landscaping and there's the golf course. So it's kind of out of your control. You can plan for it a little bit, but there have been some years where it's been like a bigger jump than others.
Right. Okay. So when they let you know that they're going up, is it just it shows up on like your invoice or however, or do they like give you like, 30-day, 60-day notice or something like that?
So they're pretty good at letting us know. I don't know for a lot of people if it's a great time frame that they let us know. But usually by the second week of November, they put out projected dues for the following year. And then the dues get voted on at the annual condo association meeting, which is usually the first week of December. So by the end of that meeting, we know what our dues are going to be for the following year. And then you have until, if you choose to pay them in one lump sum at the beginning of the year, you have until January 15th to pay them. Or if you do monthly payments, which is what I choose to do, your payments will start on January 15th.
It's so crazy. I see all these people that have like multiple contracts, like thousands of points, and I'm like, how much are you paying in dues every year? Like, it's insane.
Well, I guess that's a good question. How much? So one thing, I guess, before I forget about it. So there is like you said there's an association. So technically, if let's say Disney got real aggressive, that potentially could be curbed by that vote, and they would say you can't. So you do have a little bit of like a guardrail there, perhaps, because it's voted on, you said?
So the condo association is somewhat of a formality.
Okay, that's what I was kind of wondering.
Like as members, we don't have like a vote. We
Gotcha.
have someone on the condo association who is like a representative of members. I mean, people get upset every year when annual dues come out because nobody likes to see the price of things increase.
Right.
A lot of folks call it a cure against adding on points because once you get that bill, you're like, ooh, I don't need any more. But I've never heard of it where the members got so angry at an increase that DVC backed off. Like, okay. I think people just expect like, okay, they're going to go up this year. Like, it stinks, but they're going to go up.
So you're saying they needed to stage a revolt. That's what you're saying. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I think you were. Oh, one thing I was going to ask for before you forget about it, move on.
Yeah.
How much typically are dues like compared to like your points? Like, is there a ratio that typically they do run? I know they said they vary from resort to resort, but is there like kind of a formula that is used?
Yeah, if there is a formula, it's like really advanced math that I don't know because I'm not an accountant.
Okay.
But it is based on which resort you pick as your home resort, and then your ultimate bill is based on how many points you own.
Right.
So if you own at a resort like Old Key West, where it's a very large resort with a lot of landscaping, a golf course, and bus transportation, you're going to pay more than someone who owns at like Grand Floridian, which shares some of the costs with the regular resort guests who are paying cash and has a monorail and bus system and isn't really that big. So there's not a lot of like ground to take care of. And those villas are newer, so they require a little less maintenance than the Old Key West ones. So it just kind of depends on which one you pick, how much you're going to pay.
That's interesting. So if it does share with like a regular type resort, then obviously it's not all up to the DVC side. So interesting. Okay.
So what resort has the lowest annual dues?
I believe right now it's Bay Lake Tower, interestingly enough, just because it does share some of its costs with the resort side of the Contemporary. And because the Contemporary is kind of such a compact resort, it doesn't have a lot of space to take care of. Mm-hmm. And they have the monorail and buses, so they have a couple more options for transportation that aren't so costly.
Okay.
Well, airports aren't that hard to take care of. Really. I mean, there's not a lot of greenery. I'm only halfway kidding there. I'm sorry. Okay, so what would you say, going through all this, we'll do pros and cons here. What do you think the pros of being a DVC member are?
For me, the biggest pro is I get to go to Disney every year and stay at deluxe resorts and not pay the deluxe price. So over your membership, you do end up saving a little bit on staying deluxe. If you're someone who stays either moderate or deluxe most of the time, I think you'll see a cost savings. It makes DVC make a whole lot of sense. Mm-hmm. If you're someone who stays in value resorts, you might not, see that cost savings year over year. So maybe DVC might not be for you, but still do the math. And then on the con side, it kind of favors people who plan or can plan things really far in advance. So the earliest that we can book at our home resorts is 11 months out. So if you're the person who can plan a year ahead, like you'll probably get the exact room you want, the exact dates you want, everything like that. If you're someone who's more of like a spontaneous or a last minute planner, you might get lucky, but availability like 60 days out is pretty sparse. Like it's pretty hard sometimes to get rooms that close. And then I think kind of the other con, of course, because we've talked about it a lot, is annual dues. Like it's an added cost that you really can't predict. You hope you can budget for, but like sometimes it goes up a little higher than you thought. And I mean, you have to pay for the whole membership. So like you're still going to have a bill every year, even if you've paid off your contract.
Yeah.
That is, I think that's the sticking point with me, or with us at least, is the annual dues. Like I understand that that's part of the contract and everything. It's just, it's sticking in my brain. I'm like, especially if you buy it like Vero Beach, like you were talking about, and you have those high dues, you're just like, it's so high, but again, teach their own.
I mean, yeah. I've been told I have control issues sometimes, so maybe I don't have the control there. I don't know.
It.
Listen, you guys are not alone. Every time I make a video about annual dues, I get so many comments of like, well, is it really worth it if you have to pay them every year? Or like, is there a way I can kind of get the cost down? Like a lot of people, that's their sticking point. For me, I've kind of rationalized it as, once my contracts are paid off, all I'm responsible for are those annual dues. And I would probably be paying 2 to 3 times as much to take my same vacations if I was paying cash instead of just paying my annual dues every year.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it comes down to, I mean, it's, maybe the argument is like buying groceries at Costco. Like if your time you go, it's going to be more expensive, but if you buy in bulk, it is cheaper over the long run, perhaps.
Right.
Like stuff like that, but again, like you said, depends on how you vacation. So you said you get to stay in deluxe resorts and not pay the deluxe price tag. What is it more compared to like paying moderate prices? Like, when all the math shakes out, or is it like maybe a little bit more than moderate, but not quite as much as you would pay for a deluxe typically?
I've kind of found it to be online with like Coronado Springs kind of pricing, if you want to pick like a specific moderate resort, only because once they built that tower, kind of the value of Coronado went up a little bit. So it kind of is that in between moderate and deluxe. So, I mean, I've priced out Coronado for just, quick 1 or 2 night vacations, and to see like $350 a night, like my brain can't handle it.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
It's such a that resort we've talked about before. It's so weird. It's like, it's a moderate resort with a deluxe tower just in the middle of it. It's a beautiful tower. It's just a very strange.
It's gorgeous.
It's just a very strange way to lay it out, because it's like your brain's is not. It's hard to wrap around there. But
that's a good comparison, though. Like thinking of the tower as a comparison for the prices.
Well, we've talked about it. It's almost like, I mean, I would almost classify it as either a moderate plus or a deluxe, light or something, deluxe value or something. Because it's like it's not quite either one. So yeah.
Well, we're going to kind of shift over the conversation into talking about the new Fort Wilderness cabins that are being refurbed into DVC cabins. So we talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we had a discussion, kind of just what we were thinking about them. So we kind of wanted to get your opinion about what they're going to be, what's coming, like what it all includes. And I know they just went on sale a couple days ago. I think it was February 1st. So, just real quick, what are the contracts like right now? Like how much is it price per point for contracts at Fort Wilderness?
So the cabins at Fort Wilderness did just go on sale for existing members on February 1st, and then it'll be open to everybody on February 27th. So they are selling at $225 per point, which is pretty high. Not as high as some other properties, but it's a pretty high starting price, and it will most likely only go up from here.
Is that because, I mean, when they were just cash rooms that are just regular hotel rooms, they were pretty hard to, like, they were always like sold out. It was really hard to get a room here. Is it just because there's not a lot of them, and yet there's quite a bit of demand for them?
I think so. So this resort is going to be really unique because I don't think DVC is going after their typical customer. Like the typical DVC member wants to stay in like a Riviera or a Polynesian, like a typical deluxe resort. I think what they're trying to do is go to a very specific niche Disney fan. And those cabins were always hard to get. Like people love staying at Fort Wilderness. They love the cabins, but it's not going to have the typical amenities that I think a DVC member would expect, like an existing member like myself. So I think what they're trying to do is like get a new market of DVC member who loves staying at Fort Wilderness, wants to be sure that they can stay there every year. And maybe this is a more cost-effective way to do that.
Okay. I get that. And we were talking again on the show a couple weeks ago that, you know, sleeping 6 versus like a 1-bedroom layout at a different resort would sleep like a maximum of 5. I feel like that in and of itself would open up a lot of opportunities for bigger families, bigger groups to stay all in one place and maybe pay less than they would for like a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, and it's kind of a perfect between a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom because most of your 2-bedrooms will sleep 8 or 9. So if you don't have that big of a group and maybe you want more of like the standalone, like where you're not sharing walls with people, I think it would also be a really good fit for that kind of traveler. But like you're saying, families that, you know, have 5 or 6 people in them, maybe even a family of 4 that just kind of wants something different than your typical hotel, like this would be a good place for them.
Yeah. And what do you think of the layout and the theme?
So I really like the modern kind of aesthetic they're going for because I still think they're kind of keeping it rustic and like a little more true to Fort Wilderness as it is right now. I would have preferred the exterior to remain log cabins just because I thought it was a cool look. The layout, it's not something I'm in love with only because I'm thinking like if you have 2 people sleeping in the main bedroom and then people sleeping out on the couch, like if you're in that bedroom and you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you're like walking through the living room to get to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So
it is an odd
kind of like think of weird logistics with layouts and that just, I don't know if that would work.
It is an odd layout. I mean, we talked about it too. Like it's an odd shaped building. It's probably part of it as well, but well, and I thought I was being original, but apparently Jamie already said this, but I was like, if the audience they're going for are big fans of maybe IKEA in the woods. They just went to IKEA and they're like, I would love this in a woodsy setting. And they're like, we got you. We got this thing right here.
Definitely that aesthetic, yes.
Yeah. Maybe like, I don't know if this is a thing. Maybe Swedish people in the woods. That's what they really like.
Well, maybe they do.
I mean, I don't know.
And we briefly touched on this. I think you mentioned about the dues here. What are the dues for Fort Wilderness?
So the dues are going to be $12.15 per point. So that is the second highest in the DVC catalog as it stands right now. The only resort higher than them is Vero Beach, and that is a hurricane-prone standalone resort.
Yeah.
So kind of like I said earlier, I think maybe what went into this is the fact that they are standalone structures. That's going to require a lot of housekeeping. The fact that they allow pets, that might require more maintenance, the buses, and being standalone structures, like if Central Florida gets a hurricane, they might see a little bit more damage than a building like Riviera would.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Well, even probably like, you know, keeping power washing individual buildings and stuff like that, keeping it clean. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what they'll look like whenever they're done. By the way, do you know how many of these they have?
So from what I've heard, they have 15 that are completed.
Okay.
So they're going to have to be building them in stages. They most likely won't finish putting all of them in place because they're built off-site and then brought on. So I think they won't be finished until like mid 25. Like that's when they'll all be in.
Okay.
So availability there is going to be really hard the first year and a half. Maybe it'll ease up once they're all in. But like I said, I think it's going to be a really popular resort, especially for existing DVC members who want to try something new or that kind of niche market they might be going after.
And does this interest you specifically? Like, would you ever buy here?
I don't think so, only because it's not for me what I'm looking for in a DVC resort. Like Fort Wilderness is really cool, and the couple times that I've never stayed there, but I've visited to go to like Hoop-Dee-Doo and things, like it's a really cool place. But I kind of prefer the more typical deluxe where there's like a table service and a quick service like within really quick walking distance of my room, and I kind of like being in like a bigger hotel structure. I definitely would try staying here for like a couple nights just to, get the feel of the resort and get to experience it, but I don't think if I was buying today this would be my first pick.
Fair enough.
Now, have you heard anything? Because I don't think Disney has said anything officially. I don't know if everybody remembers the rehab facility, Reflections, that they were going to build over this area, also known as a DVC resort. Is that still in the work? They haven't said anything about it, and they've kind of just
quietly.
They just kind of have it. But have you heard anything if that's still something that they're planning on doing, or is it just sort of quietly being sort of shuffled off to the side?
Yeah, so as far as DVC goes, Reflections is the resort that shall not be named because they never talk about it anymore. Like all of the literature about it, any mention of it has been completely scrubbed from the website. There's no mention of maybe we'll build it down the road, or maybe I think it's kind of a dead project. And it's unfortunate because I was kind of looking forward to seeing what Reflections was going to look like. I wasn't in love with the name, but I liked how they were kind of doing that modern rustic theme. So I would eventually like to see it down the road. I just don't know if it will happen.
Yeah.
I wonder what they'll do with that space then, because it's all like leveled off. I mean,
all cleared.
Poor River Country.
Playground.
Finally.
Yeah, who knows? Now, I didn't know, when will they start selling points on the Polynesian Tower?
Good question.
Because is that supposed to be done like late this year, correct?
Sometime this year, right?
I couldn't remember the date they said.
Yeah, I think we'll see them start selling points maybe summer this year.
Yeah.
With like maybe an opening late this year, early next year. I think the thing that they're going to be kind of running up against is they're going to have so many resorts actively selling at the same time. So you're going to have Polynesian points, Fort Wilderness, Riviera, Alani, which they cannot seem to sell out. Like you're just going to have so many resorts to pick from. I wonder if they hold off on starting poly sales until they see how Fort Wilderness goes.
Yeah.
I tell you the rumblings I hear about Polynesian Tower is that people are very excited because I know there's a lot of people that love Polynesian Resort, but maybe held off on buying from there because they were limited to just studios and the bungalows basically. And then now with the tower, that just opens up like so many more possibilities. So I think people are going to be like really excited to buy here.
I think a lot of people are really excited about Polynesian. I know a lot of people they're literally waiting to buy in until Polynesian goes on. So
I wonder what the price is going to be.
I know.
It's like
we're going to have a nice line of folks in the phone queue on the first day it goes on sale.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I look at a resort like Grand Californian over in at Anaheim, Disneyland, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it like $330 a point?
The last time I looked, it was up there. And even on the resale market, I think the lowest I've ever seen it go for is like $265 a point. Like it is a hard to get resort and people know it. So.
Yeah. So I hope Polynesia's not that expensive. Hopefully not. But we are in Florida and they're in California, so.
This is true. Well, and I guess ask a question here because we have rented DVC points in the past. And I know this is a way a lot of people, maybe if they're dipping their toes into maybe doing DVC or they, want to stay at a deluxe a little bit cheaper. So obviously DVC owners will rent their points out from time to time. Is this something that you personally recommend people to try or like you have places for them to do it? And is this something, because I know some people buy with the intention of renting points out. Is that something that you would say that you'd stay away from or anything like that?
So it is a whispered thing within the community that there are people who will buy contracts just to rent them out and have income from that. You still have to pay taxes on it. It's not like tax-free income. It's generally frowned upon in the DVC community to do that and like openly admit that you do that because you're taking away rooms from members who would book them. So I would just not recommend it. And then if you're wanting to try DVC, if you're not really sure if it's for you or you're trying to figure out which resort you want to buy into, renting points is a great way to do it because you're still not paying what you would be paying if you booked with cash through Disney. You're still getting a pretty good discount there. And it's kind of like a no strings attached way to try it out. So if you try Animal Kingdom Lodge and you really don't like it that much, you can always try Grand Floridian without the commitment of buying in and then trying it out.
Yeah. That makes it, like we said, we've done it a few times and have had pretty good experiences, but it's definitely one of those things where you can go, person to person, but you got to be very careful because people do get scammed on this.
Well, you can do it direct from a member, but you can also do third party.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Some people feel uncomfortable. Like you got to, if you're doing it from direct from a member, I mean, Jamie's done this a lot. Like you've got to, your P's and Q's and what to look out for and certain things. But if you're uncomfortable with that, I mean, we've personally used, there's a bunch out there now. Like I know we've used David's DVC and you probably know of a few.
Is it DVC resale?
DVC rental store.
DVC rental store. Yeah.
Where you can rent. So basically they're the middleman between owners and people who want to rent points. You'll pay a little bit more that way than renting directly, but you do have, I guess you just have the assurance that like it's all above board. You're not going to potentially get, defrauded or anything like that. But I just wanted to bring up because we've done it a few times and it's been great when we've done it.
Yeah.
We've stayed.
No problems or anything.
No, and usually even we've rented directly from people and they've been really great to work with. If there's been any issues, sometimes you get issues on like the reservation and stuff like that. But I think it's something if people are curious about it, it's a good way to sort of, like you said, dip your toes in and, try it out.
I tell you, whenever the parks open back up in late 2020, there were a lot of people that couldn't travel to Florida, and a lot of people were trying to rent their points out, and so we got some very good deals for like the next 3 months after that. But
well, I guess that would be a question if you are, let's say you a DVC and you can't travel that year for some reason. That's why a lot of people will rent points, correct? Like they can at least get something for their points that they already paid for.
Yeah, especially if you get into a situation like a lot of members did during COVID where they couldn't travel. So that was a problem for a lot of international members who weren't able to come into the States and then go back to their home countries. Yeah. So you had a lot of people who were like rolling points into the next year and then they still couldn't use them. And when we bank points forward, you have to use them in that year or they expire.
Right.
So you had a lot of people who banked points thinking like, oh, I'll be able to travel next year. Everything will be fine. And then all of a sudden, maybe they couldn't. So they were renting those points out. So then at least they weren't, completely wasted. They could still get a little bit money back for them. And I know a lot of people who kind of get in similar situations where either they borrowed points or they banked points and they just need to get rid of them before they expire. And it's always nice to have a little extra income.
Yeah.
It's true.
Makes sense. All right. You got any other questions?
I was going to ask you, do you know of any special offers that Disney's offering right now if you buy any of their contracts?
So I do.
Okay.
Disney is doing their late winter incentives right now. They go until April 1st. But these incentives also accompanied a price hike.
Of course.
So for some of them, it might not really be saving you a ton of money, but they have to push them. So Alani, Disneyland Hotel, and Riviera are the three that are having incentives right now just because Fort Wilderness just went on sale. So they're not going to do a ton of incentives around that just yet. So for members, if you add on at Alani, you can save $17 per point if you buy at least 150. Disneyland Hotel, you can save $11 per point, and Riviera, you can save $11 per point. If you're a new member, so you don't have any points at all and you're just starting, at Alani, you can save $10 per point if you buy at least 150. Disneyland Hotel is $5 per point, and then Riviera is $7 per point. So there's a little bit of savings, but for some, it doesn't quite offset that price increase. So,
yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They have to make it back somehow.
I mean, Disney never does that. They never raise prices on anything. I know. All right. Well, I think you got any more questions?
I was just gonna say, if someone is interested in buying a contract or looking up DVC or wanting to tour like one of the units or whatever, is it easiest to call or should they just stop by? I mean, because I know like we've toured the Cascade Cabins at Copper Creek before. And
well, we walked in when they were actively just giving tours.
But I mean, like, so would you say in person is better? Calling, like, what would you recommend if someone's interested?
So it's difficult to say that anything positive came out of 2020. But one of the things that was a good thing, especially for DVC, is they've started doing a lot more tours at the resorts. So any of the deluxe resorts that you go into that have that little DVC kiosk or desk, they set model rooms aside that people aren't staying in so you can see the room in its resort. So for a lot of people, that's been helpful with picking where they want to buy as a home resort because you're going through the motions of getting to the resort and getting to the room and really seeing what it looks like in its hotel. So you can do that. I recommend that if you're not really sure which place to buy, you can kind of see them all. They do tours on property. If you go through the parks, you'll see all the DVC kiosks. They'll sign you up for a little info session with a guide. They will pick you up from the park, take you to that little info session, and then they'll basically drop you off wherever you want on property. So if you want to go back to your resort, they'll take you there. If you want to go back to the park, they'll do that. In person, I think you really get the full experience of DVC while you're at the Disney park, but it's still a very low pressure sale. Like most of the guides will not tell you to buy while you're still on vacation. They'll say like, all right, so here's all the information. Once you get home, think about it for a week or two, call if you have any questions, or they'll call you after like 2 weeks, but they try not to get you while you're still in vacation mode. Because a lot of people, if they bought while they're on vacation, when they go home, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just spent like $15,000 on DVC. Like, this is ridiculous. And they'll try to cancel it.
Yeah.
So they really try to make it like they give you a lot of time to think about it. I know for me, I tried to buy 25 more points while I was on vacation. Like I was sitting at the Polynesian pool and I called my guide and I was like, I think I need like 25 more points. And he's like, okay, so here's how much it's going to be. Go home and we'll talk next week. Like there was no like, oh, let me just get your credit card number. Like they really want you to know that you're making a good decision.
I mean, that's good. I mean, especially being a timeshare, they've got, I'm sure, you know, they don't have the best of reputations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's true. But yeah, these vacation club salesmen, they're great.
They are. And I will say over the years, like they're not overly pushy. And I've talked to a lot of people who have said the same thing. Like they don't try and high pressure you. So that is good, especially, you know, if you want people to actually be happy with their purchase, which I've never understood the whole timeshare thing of like doing that anyways. I'm like, you're just going to get a bunch of people that don't want your product. Like it's just weird.
I hate calling it a timeshare though, because it's really, I mean, it's so different than like a regular timeshare.
It's an experience share.
It's yes.
There you go. I don't know.
It's a point share.
Well, yeah. You're sharing something either way.
I don't know.
But yeah. So, well, thank you for being on, Samantha. First time. We'll have you on more, I'm sure. They can find you at DVCMillenial on Instagram. Are you on Twitter as well?
So I'm not on Twitter, but you can find me at DVCMillenial on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, basically almost anywhere but Twitter.
I guess I should say X now.
Yeah.
But anyways,
not on X.
Yeah, that's good. And then like I said, all your content revolves around DVC, so you're a great resource for this. Just tell everybody like where they can find you, anything else you want them to know, and all that. I know you said you have a newsletter you do as well.
I do. I have a monthly newsletter, and every other month is a resort guide. I am going to be doing Riviera next month. And the months in between, I do little Learn DVC with Me guides. So I talk about vacation points, home resorts, all different DVC topics. So if you're just starting your research, they're kind of little one-page starter guides.
Okay.
Love it. That's awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It was awesome. I learned a lot. I'm a novice to DVC, so I learned a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna take it with me.
Put it in your hat.
Put it in my pocket and keep it with me.
I didn't know where you were gonna put it. I knew you were gonna say you're gonna put it somewhere. I'm like, I don't know where you're gonna put it.
Right here in my little pocket. Anyway, I don't know. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for the show. Be sure, again, to follow us on social media at Cap the Magic everywhere, except for over on TikTok. We're at Capture the Magic if you want to follow us over there. Also, be sure to check out video versions of the show over on YouTube at CTM Podcast. So it's video versions of the show and show clips. And if you want on the main YouTube channel at Cap the Magic, we have a lot of Epic Universe construction updates, videos talking about tips, a lot of things we talk about on the podcast, but we just do them in a condensed, edited video over there. But it's different. It's the same type of content, just in a different way over there. And you can also check out some of the other shows we have on the network. Like we have Club 30. We have the CTM Universal show where we talk about Universal Studios. In the last episode, we broke down everything after Epic Universe's update about everything we know about Epic Universe. So if you want to know about that, that's a great episode to get you all caught up on everything that we know up to this point about it. And we always have Jamie's Trip Tales show, which is her trip report show.
Yeah. I'll have a new episode here in about 2 weeks.
Okay. And that's a great resource if you're going on a trip, because there's tons of people that have been on that show that have gone on a trip, probably similar to yours. So you get some insight on there. And if you want even more content, again, Club 32, ctmvip.com is where you go to check that out. And I think that'll do it. So thank you, everybody, for listening and or watching. And thank you, Jamie, for joining us.
Thank you.
And as Jamie always likes to say,
we will see you in the parks.
bye.